Red warning lights pulsed across the cockpit, painting Captain Elias Voss in blood-colored hues. Smoke curled from a shattered console, filling the air with the acrid bite of burnt circuitry. Somewhere in the bowels of the gunship, metal screamed as the failing hull warped under pressure, and the enemy was still on their tail. Elias clenched the flight stick, forcing the ironclad into a sharp dive as a pulse cannon blast ripped past the canopy, so close it left a glowing heat trail across the reinforced glass. "Shields are gone!" Arya Jung's voice crackled through the comms. Beneath the cockpit, in the maintenance crawlspace, the ship's engineer was already working against time, her hands buried in a nest of exposed wiring. "I can try to reroute power, but that's a big maybe. Figure it out." Elias's voice was steady, but his heart was a sledgehammer against his ribs. He flicked the comms to the rear gunner. "Callie?" The gunner's seat rattled as Callie Rourke swiveled her turret, her sharp grin practically audible. Yeah, I see them." The Zorkesh warship was close now, too close. It was all sleek, silver symmetry, gliding through space like a predator, scenting wounded prey. Its plasma cannons flared again. No time. "Hold tight!" Elias yanked the ship hard to starboard. The ironclad rolled, skimming the edge of a drifting asteroid. The plasma bolts that should have ended them instead splashed against the rock, sending molten debris in all directions. "Ha! Missed me, you scaly bastards!" Callie whooped as she lined up a return shot. The gunship's rear cannons roared, spewing white-hot kinetic rounds. The Zorkesh pilot dodged, but not fast enough. The human rounds punched into their shields, making them flicker. Not break, just flicker. Callie scowled. "Ugh, hate these guys." "They did design their ships to tank direct hits," Samir Bhatia murmured from his station. The team's dreamer, an astrophysicist turned tactical analyst, studied the holographic display of their pursuer. His fingers tapped a silent rhythm against the console. "They don't expect people to think outside the box." Elias heard the subtext. "We need to do something unexpected." His mind raced. Their ship was outgunned, their shields were fried, and their backup plan consisted of hoping Arya worked miracles before they exploded. The Zorkesh ship loomed closer, charging its primary cannon. Callie gritted her teeth. "Any time now, boss," Elias exhaled. His decision came fast. "We're going through the rig." Silence. Then, "You want to run where?" Callie asked. Elias had already changed course. Ahead, floating in the abyss, was a derelict Zorkesh mining rig, an abandoned hulk of metal and shattered asteroid fragments. It was a maze of broken scaffolding, exposed fuel lines, and jagged debris, a death trap at these speeds. Arya's voice rose through the comms. "Elias, that's suicide. Not if we thread the needle." The Zorkesh ship followed, relentless. They expected the humans to keep running, to stay predictable. They were wrong. Elias punched the throttle. The ironclad surged forward, skimming just meters above the rig's surface. The mining station became a blur, twisting corridors of metal and ruined machinery flashing past at impossible speeds. Elias saw a narrow opening ahead, just wide enough for their ship. Maybe. "Brace!" He pulled up at the last second. The ironclad shot through the gap, so close that its wingtips scraped against the metal, sending a shower of sparks into the void. The Zorkesh weren't so lucky. Their ship tried to follow, but it was too large, too precise. It clipped the edge of the structure. Just a graze. But a graze was all it took. A single spark ignited an exposed fuel line. The explosion bloomed outward, a chain reaction that consumed the mining rig and the warship in a violent, star-bright inferno. The shockwave slammed into the ironclad, tossing it like a toy. Elias wrestled the controls, fighting to stabilize. The ship groaned, shuddered, then leveled out. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then, "Woo!" Callie's laugh was breathless, half crazed. "Did you see that? Oh man, holy shit, that was beautiful." Elias let out a slow breath, unclenching his fingers from the stick. His knuckles ached. Sam's voice was softer, but there was awe in it. They didn't even consider we'd do that. Arya groaned from below. I hate all of you. Elias smirked. But we're alive. Another beat of silence. Then Arya exhaled. Yeah, barely. Sam turned back to his console. The star map flickered, showing their next destination, a Zorkesh research facility, deep within enemy space. They're going to notice we just took out one of their warships, he murmured. Elias met his gaze. Good. He adjusted their heading, eyes locked on the distant void. Let them come. Space was quiet. It was the kind of silence that pressed against your eardrums, making you hyper-aware of your own breathing, your own heartbeat. Captain Elias Voss hated it. The ironclad drifted in the asteroid field, its engines powered down to a near whisper. Elias sat in the cockpit, gaze fixed on the facility ahead, a massive hexagonal structure floating in the void. Beneath the sleek alien architecture, he saw the ugly truth. Cages, rows upon rows of containment cells, their surfaces shimmering with energy fields. The Zorkesh weren't just conducting research here. They were keeping prisoners. Elias exhaled slowly, forcing down the surge of anger clawing at his chest. Sam, talk to me. From his station, Samir Bhatia's fingers danced across the controls. The dreamer's voice was steady, but his brow furrowed in concentration. I'm reading heavy shielding around the central core, military grade, and there's an active security grid covering every approach. Callie Rourke cracked her knuckles. So what you're saying is, we can't just knock and ask nicely? Sam shot her a look. Not unless you speak fluent screw-off, lesser species. Elias grimaced. The Zorkesh had never been subtle about their disdain for humanity. To them, humans were unpredictable anomalies. Clever but crude, dangerous but unsophisticated. They thought they understood war. They were about to get a lesson. Arya Jung emerged from the crawlspace, grease-streaked and scowling. All right, we've got about 3 minutes of stealth before their scanners pick us up. After that, they'll light us up like a bonfire. Elias made his decision. We split up. Callie's grin widened. Now we're talking. Phase 1. Infiltration. Arya's fingers flew over the controls. Her voice clipped, scrambling their proximity sensors now. Elias and Callie launched from the ship, their thrusters flaring briefly before cutting to a dead glide. They maneuvered through the debris field, using the shadows of asteroids to stay hidden. The research facility loomed ahead, its surface smooth and wrong, all clean lines and eerie symmetry. It had no visible entry points. Just like the Zorkesh themselves, it didn't account for chaos. Elias intended to change that. Callie pointed. There. Ventilation shaft. 8 o'clock. Elias didn't hesitate. He grabbed the edge of the vent and planted a magnetic charge. A pulse of energy rippled outward, disrupting the containment locks. The hatch popped open. They slipped inside. The air in the shaft was cold, sterile. Elias could hear the hum of the facility's power grid, feel the vibration beneath his fingertips. Every step forward sent a sharp jolt of adrenaline through his veins. A Zorkesh patrol passed beneath them, 3 tall insectoid figures, their armor gleaming under the pale lights. They moved with mechanical precision, never once looking up. Callie smirked. Arrogant bastards don't even expect an incursion. Elias didn't smile. They will soon. Phase 2. Sabotage. Sam's voice crackled over comms. Security grids shifting, they know something's off. In the control room, Arya worked fast. Her hands flew over the Zorkesh interface. Her teeth clenched in frustration. God, their coding is so pretentious. Sam frowned. How can code be pretentious? Everything's perfectly optimized. No redundancies, no fail-safes. It's all designed under the assumption that nothing ever goes wrong. Callie's voice came through, grinning. So let's introduce some human error. Arya's lips curled. She hit the override. Throughout the facility, doors snapped open. Lights flickered. Sirens blared. Chaos erupted in an instant. Elias activated his mag boots and sprinted. Go! Phase 3. The extraction. The cages filled the entire sector, stretching down a long corridor like a grim archive. Inside them were beings from a dozen different species, their faces gaunt, their eyes hollow, and at the far end, a human. Elias's breath hitched. The man inside was barely conscious, his uniform tattered, but his insignia was clear. Captain Reynolds, UEF, Special Forces, a prisoner of war. Reynolds lifted his head, blearily focusing on Elias. His cracked lips moved. Took you long enough, Elias grinned. We aim to please. Blaster fire erupted behind them. The Zorkesh had arrived. The first shot seared past Elias Voss's ear, close enough to burn. He ducked, yanking Captain Reynolds from the cell, just as another bolt struck the wall where the prisoner's head had been. The energy barrier keeping them contained had failed, but the Ironclad's crew had just triggered a new problem. Every Zorkesh in the facility was now descending on them, and Zorkesh didn't believe in taking prisoners. The corridor filled with sharp, insectoid figures, their sleek rifles humming as they leveled them toward the humans. Elias didn't think. He moved. Covering fire! Callie Rourke was already on it. She swung out from behind a containment pod, unloading a burst from her kinetic rifle. The rounds hammered into the lead soldier's armor, enough to stagger him, not enough to drop him. Arya Zhang's voice crackled through comms. Drones incoming! You need to move! Elias slung Reynolds' arm over his shoulder and ran. Samir Bhatia had already mapped the quickest escape route, down a supply corridor, through the transport bay, and out. But quickest wasn't the same as safe, especially when the alarms blared again and the security bulkheads began slamming shut. Arya! Elias snapped. On it! She shot back. The engineer was still deep in the facility's control center, fingers flying over the alien console. Her pulse pounded as she scrambled the automated lockdown, forcing doors open that should have sealed their fate. But the Zorkesh system was learning. It was fighting back. Guys, I can't hold these doors forever! Elias and Callie sprinted through the open checkpoint, dragging Reynolds between them. The transport bay was ahead. So was their exit. Callie grinned. That wasn't so. The floor beneath them detonated. An explosion ripped through the corridor, sending metal and fire everywhere. The shockwave hurled Elias and Reynolds forward, slamming them into the deck. Elias's ears rang, his vision blurred, dust and smoke choking the air. The Zorkesh weren't taking chances anymore. They'd sealed the main path forward, and now, through the haze, hulking silhouettes emerged. Arya's voice snapped through comms. Elias, we have a way out. Maintenance shaft, 30 meters west, second floor. Elias's jaw tightened. We can't reach it with those drones in the way. Reynolds, still weak but awake, gave a ragged chuckle. Then you need a distraction. Elias turned to him. Reynolds grinned through bloody teeth. Give me a gun. Callie blinked. Oh, I like this guy. Elias made his decision. He handed Reynolds his sidearm. You buy us 30 seconds. Reynolds checked the ammo. I'll give you 60. And then the soldier turned, bracing against a ruined support beam, and opened fire. Kinetic rounds tore into the first drone, sparking against its shields. The machine recalibrated, shifting focus. Elias grabbed Callie and ran. Not soldiers, combat drones. 2 meters tall, sleek, and bristling with plasma weaponry, their glowing optics locked onto the humans. Elias wiped blood from his lip. Sam? Sam's voice was grim. I see them. Callie groaned, pushing herself up. Okay, now we're screwed? Elias didn't hesitate. No, we're not. Sam guided them through the maintenance tunnels, their boots pounding against metal grates. Arya had forced open the auxiliary airlocks, bypassing the final security layers. Callie skidded to a stop, glancing back. What about Reynolds? Elias didn't answer. He couldn't. But as they breached the outer hull, exploding into the void, thrusters kicking to life, the comms crackled. Reynolds' voice ragged but laughing. Told you I'd make it. and behind them, deep in the Zorkesh facility, explosions rippled outward. Reynolds had set charges. The station was burning, and the war had just begun. The ironclad thundered through the void, its engines burning hotter than hell itself. Alarms howled inside the cockpit, but Captain Elias Voss barely heard them. His mind was focused on one thing, finishing this. Behind him, Callie Rourke locked another magazine into her rifle, grinning like she'd won the lottery. So just so we're clear, our plan is to piss off the entire Zorkesh fleet? Samir Bhatia, at the co-pilot's console, wiped sweat from his brow. We already did that. Now we're making it personal. Elias's voice was ice. Damn right we are. On the main screen, the Zorkesh High Command Citadel loomed, a fortress built into the planet's surface, bristling with defenses. Inside, the architects of humanity's humiliation sat in comfort, confident their superior technology would shield them. They were wrong, because in exactly 3 minutes, the ironclad would smash through their defenses like a battering ram from hell. Arya Jang's voice cut through comms, tense and sharp. We've got incoming. Fast movers, 5 o'clock. Elias barely glanced at the radar. How many? Sam exhaled. Enough that we should be dead already. Callie cracked her knuckles. Good. I was getting bored. The Zorkesh interceptors came in hard and fast. Sleek, predatory things that moved with perfect precision. Their pilots were calculating, disciplined, every maneuver optimized for efficiency. That was their mistake. Humans weren't efficient. They were wild, unpredictable, dangerous. Elias wrenched the controls sideways, slamming the ironclad into a roll so violent it should have snapped the stabilizers. Plasma fire lanced past them, missing by inches. Callie whooped. Hell yeah! Sam was less enthusiastic. You are actually insane. Arya cut in. Less talking, more shooting. The ship's turrets came alive, spewing hot metal death into the vacuum. One interceptor exploded instantly. Its pilot, trained for precision, had no defense against raw, chaotic aggression. Elias grinned. One down. More came. The ironclad twisted and wove through the maelstrom, juking wildly between enemy fire. The Zorkesh adapted fast, but not fast enough. Sam dumped the ship's excess fuel into space, then ignited it. A firestorm erupted behind them, engulfing 2 more interceptors in a brilliant chain reaction. Arya cheered. That's what I'm talking about. Elias didn't slow. The Citadel was ahead, its defense grid cycling up, cannons locking onto them. They were out of time. The ship shuddered as the first railgun round clipped the hull. Sam swore. Shields at 18%. Callie's voice was sharp. We need a door, now. Elias made his choice. Arya, crash it. The engineer blinked. Wait, what? Elias's grip was steady. Take us in. Hard. She didn't argue. The ironclad roared downward, its engines screaming against gravity. The Citadel's cannons fired, too late. The ship slammed into the upper levels like a goddamn meteor, tearing through bulkheads in a shower of metal and flame. Impact. The world went white. Elias staggered to his feet, ears ringing. Smoke filled the corridors. The ship was half buried in the Citadel's command sector. Perfect. Callie hauled herself up. Still alive? Neat. Sam groaned. Remind me never to let you two drive. Arya flicked a half-broken console. Hull's shot. We're not flying out of here. Elias exhaled. We're not here to run. Ahead, a towering blast door led to Zorkesh High Command. Inside were the bastards who had called humanity primitive, who had experimented on their people, who had dismissed them as an inconvenience. Elias activated his rifle. Callie? She cocked hers. Oh, you know I'm ready. They kicked the door down. The High Council turned as the humans stormed in. For the first time, Elias saw fear in their alien eyes. A towering Zorkesh lord took a step forward, mandibles clicking. You cannot win. Elias raised his rifle. Watch us. The room erupted. Callie tore through their elite guards like a storm, every shot precise and brutal. Sam disabled their security systems in seconds, blinding the entire citadel. Arya hacked the emergency broadcast, sending the battle to every Zorkesh screen in the system. The galaxy watched. They saw their mighty overlords brought to their knees. And then Elias stood over the fallen Zorkesh leader, rifle aimed at his head. The alien's voice was a whisper. "You are not what we thought." Elias's eyes burned with fury. "We're worse." He pulled the trigger.